morning. On behalf of the IMG Educational Steering Committee, I welcome you all on August 12, 2023. This is the second of a series. The Educational Steering Committee members are Drs. Rupak Desai, Srinivas Aragola, Dr. Murthy Gokula, Dr. Mani Gupta, Dr. Pankaj Parikh, Dr. Tanmay Patwa, Dr. Nilesh Jariwala, Dr. Amar Kakadia, and Dr. Lily Singhavaranan. And myself, Saraswati Mupana. I practice internal medicine, pulmonary critical care, and sleep medicine, affiliated with Beth Israel and Tufts in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm also the IMG chair for the Massachusetts Medical Society. Now I'll be introducing the panelists. Good morning, everybody. This is the second of our Zoom session on IMGs. It's put up by the Education Steering Committee, and we have a panel member of a few members on the Education Committee. I just want to mention their names. If I forget any names, please excuse me. It's Dr. Rupak Desai, Dr. Murthy Gokula, Dr. Srinivas Aragola. We have Dr. Pankaj Parikh, Dr. Manoj Gupta, Dr. Jariwala, and we have Dr. Amar as well, Kakadia, and Dr. Lily, and Dr. Tanmay Patwa. So we are all the Education Steering Committee members, and I thank you for this opportunity. Today we are actually going to speak about, because for so many of you who missed the personal statement session, we're going to talk a little bit about the personal statement, and then we're going to move on with the letters of recommendation and what are the best residency programs for you. It's going to be like each of the panelists. We have a very fun panelist actually, and very experienced panelists who are very passionate about mentoring the IMGs. So it's going to be very valuable. And once each one of them speak briefly about the personal statements, and then we'll move on to the next round of letter of recommendations, and then we'll follow up with the programs. Right. So first, let me introduce the panel. We have, this is in no specific order. This is what I have on my phone, so I'm just going to read it out. Dr. Pratna Bharadwaj. She's a hem-oncology attending at UMass Chan Bay State in Springfield. She did her residency, chief residency, and fellowship at the same place, and she really liked Boston, living in Boston. She thinks it's fun. Good for that part, Pratna. And so she continues to live in Massachusetts, and she's currently joining as an attending there. She's been an active member of the ACP, American College of Physicians, Massachusetts chapter, and was also the inaugural chair of the Council of Resident and Fellow Members, bringing various programs to the state. And she is now the vice chair of the IMG section for Massachusetts Medical Society. Thank you, Pratna. In spite of your busy schedule, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next I have is Meet Patel, Dr. Meet Patel. I want to thank Dr. Pankaj Parikh for bringing in Meet Patel as one of our panelists. Thank you, Meet, for that. And he is actually doing his cardiology fellowship at Sunny Upstate Medical Center. And he is originally from Odisha National Medical University, did his internship in Ahmedabad, then residency in Interfaith Medical Center in Brooklyn. And he's doing his fellowship in cardiology currently. Thank you, Meet, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Saras.
And we have Dr. Vibhor Wadhwa. Good morning. And I want to thank our friend, Dr. Avinash Chhabra, for introducing us to Dr. Vibhor. So he's an interventional radiologist practicing here in New Hampshire, close by, graduated from Maulana Azad Medical College in New Delhi, and moved to US. He completed his diagnostic radiology residency from University of Arkansas and interventional radiology fellowship from Weill Cornell Medical Center in New York City. He authored over 100 peer-reviewed research papers in the field of radiology. He serves as a reviewer, editorial board for several high-impact journals, and he helps current medical students, residents, and fellows from his alma mater and beyond to stay connected with each other. And he's been mentoring IMGs for the past several years.
Thank you. Good to be
Thank
here.
you.
Can I make one comment? Can
Of
we
course.
have the cameras on, whoever is able to? It's hard to talk to like a stack of Tetris. So if whoever can, please turn on your cameras. That'll be a more interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vibhor. And Amu Thambi Sushila, she has a long list of achievements, but I'm just going to make it a little more succinct, Amu. She's been mentoring students for USMLE and residency applications for the past few years. And she did a residency in internal medicine and geriatrics from Loyola University in Chicago, Illinois. And prior to that, she did a postdoctoral research fellowship at Harvard Medical School, Beth Israel, Boston, and during which time she completed a principles practices of clinical research courses. And she's aspiring to be a gastroenterology GI fellow. She co-founded a wearable medtech company for patients with dementia. Amu, good luck with that. We like to see you in the market. We like to see that product in the market very soon. And she's experienced in serving lead roles as a vice chair of Harvard Medical Postdoc Association, task force member of Mass Medical Society. And she's also a national delegate of AMA from Illinois. And she's actually the past president of the Medical Student, Resident, and Fellow section, the MSRF section for National RP. And she co-authored numerous papers, presented her research work at various conferences, and she's very passionate about helping out IMGs. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm hoping this will be a very experiencing and fun session for all of us. I don't mean fun in a wrong way. I mean like learning and learning a lot from each other. That's what I meant. So the first is going to be on personal statements, because most of the applicants missed the previous session. So just for benefit, we wanted to know what are the do's and don'ts. If each one of you can actually just give us a little do's and don'ts of the personal statement, how to write them, what to avoid writing in them, briefly, I think that'll be very valuable. Amu, you want to go first?
Sure. So personal statement is very important. It can actually make or break. A very bad personal statement can have a negative impact. So although it may not like completely be the deciding factor, spending a lot of time on creating a well-curated, clear personal statement is very important. And all of us, we're all different. We all have different stories to tell. So your job is to bring out your individual story in the personal statement. I like it so it basically has 3 parts. You have the introduction, body, and conclusion. And if there is a connecting link, at least through the series of events, if the introduction and conclusion can be connected, that is a very good way of connecting the dots. So throughout the journey, what I do is I look back, I try to connect the dots of various events in my life and how they could be connected. So when you have a personal statement, when you can have an underlying thread that shows the passion for the specialty you're applying, that actually stands out. It's very important to give examples in your personal statement. So if you really have a moving event in your life that changed the course or that was a deciding factor, it is important to engage in it. I just was talking to somebody who was so passionate about getting into infectious disease, mainly because COVID actually killed her. She had a family member passed away with COVID. And it was such a personal experience, although it was like we saw a lot of them. A lot of times we tend to become very standardized. We try to stick to like what people might want to listen to, but telling your story is the most important thing. So my 3 things takeaway for personal statement would be, trying to connect the dots of at least the introduction and conclusion, if they can have a flow. That's very important. Telling your specific examples and achievements. And then finally, you have to proofread and have many drafts of it. Just one would not be sufficient. As IMGs, we may not be used to this format. So actually having someone whose experience look through it and have several proofread sessions would really help you.
Thank you, Amu. Pratna, would you like to go next, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm mostly internal medicine and subspecialty. So one thing is that internal medicine gets a lot of applications. So typically programs end up getting about somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 applications. And there are several programs that use filters and several programs that don't. So in my personal opinion, I feel like personal statements kind of fall into three main categories: really stellar ones, decent ones, and then bad ones. The majority of them fall in like the decent personal statement category. Like Amu mentioned, I feel like even though during residency, personal statement may not necessarily really be the most deciding factor, it may break or make your application. A really bad personal statement will, even if you have a great application, a really bad personal statement may weed you out. At the same time, if you have a stellar personal statement, even if you have a mediocre application, somebody may say, hey, I want to meet this person and get to know this person a little bit more. My 2 cents about personal statement. I like personal statements with a theme, a single theme, or around 1 or 2 themes. For example, it could be about mentorship, or it could be about resiliency and how the events of your life have kind of fallen into that theme that's taken you to this particular stage of your life. I just find it a little bit more reflective rather than rehashing your CV. So I think my big don'ts would be try not to rehash your CV because they have it in front of you. I think really it's trying to know what was the theme or the story behind how you reached that particular point, which, if you can kind of bring out would be good. And the second thing is, in terms of having your personal statement being read and reviewed by someone else, absolutely you want to do that. But my suggestion is don't send it to too many people. You're going to get too many ideas. My suggestion is send it to one person who knows you really, really well, and send it to 1 or 2 people who don't really know you that well and can kind of critique it and give you some information on, what can you do better to make it a little bit more interesting. But again, spend some time trying to reflect upon who you are. And I think somebody who knows you well might be able to tell you if your personal statement sounds authentic to you or not. Because when you interview, believe it or not, as an applicant, I never realized it, but as a person who interviews someone, you can clearly see through something that's not authentic. So I think it's really important to be true to yourself.
Thank you, Pratna. Meet, please.
Sure. That was a great introduction by Dr. Amu and Dr. Pratna. One thing I would like to add on top of it is personal statement is a great way to show your vulnerabilities. And for example, if you have gap, or if you are an old graduate or anything like that, that's where you can mention why is it so. For example, so we have like a lot of different circumstances. Like someone might have personal issues, financial issues, whatever those reasons are which held you back from applying earlier or anything like that. That's the place you can mention it. Second thing is, all the IMGs, we all know when we write personal statement, it's very difficult to be 100% honest. We all try to tend to add little masala to it to make it little spiced up, but don't go over the board. I can tell you, I was chief resident at the place where I was, and even our program coordinator, before the personal statement reaches the program director, she can sense it that this is not something honest. So just don't try to do that. Of course, you have to present it, you have to sell your story, but try to maintain a decency and honesty in it. Something else, if I want to add. Same thing for me. I had certain flaws in my let's say in the journey that I had, and I mentioned it in my PS both the time during residency, fellowship, right? I started my introduction with that. So if that's one negative point in my personal state, my entire journey or entire CV or anything, that's completely out of the way because I've already given my explanation based on that. So that's something I would say would be valuable. To all the negative sides or vulnerabilities, present it in a nice way in personal statement, so you don't have to prove that during interviews.
Thank you, Meet. Very well said, actually. Bringing out your gaps on the personal statement and explaining why and how you became a better person from that experience. It could be any drawback. I mean, anything could have happened in anybody's life. But just making that and saying what you've learned from that experience and how you became a better person, I think that is really important. Thank you. Vibhor, please.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with everything that the panel said, Dr. Sushila Bhardwaj and Dr. Patel. I just have a couple of more things to add. I just have a list of things that people should be aware of. At the onset, this is probably the first time that in our career that we are writing something about ourselves that we are sending to like random people to read essentially. So at the onset, please do ask for help. You don't have to do this on your own. Do ask for help from your seniors, from your mentors, from anybody just getting it started. That is the most inertia heavy part, is getting a draft ready. It might be your friends, it might be your mentors, anybody. Please do reach out and ask for help. Obviously, as Dr. Bhardwaj said, don't go overboard and ask for like 20 people for help. Probably about a couple of people or 3 people who know you well can help you get started. But yes, please do reach out. Don't think you have to do this on your own. Personal statement is not a place where you need to be arrogant about things, but it's also not a statement where you need to be overly modest. So if you graduated top 1% of your class, please do mention it. You don't have to say 99% of people were below you, because that sounds arrogant, but you can say, yes, I did graduate in the top 1% of my class, because that is your achievement. If you have some other achievement in your CV that you do want to highlight, personal statement is one of the places to do, because as increasingly I've read some applications where the applications are getting very, very competitive these years. So the CVs can get very hard to like tease out like what their actual, all of them are achievements. So which achievement highlights? Personal statement is the way to go about it. Make sure the personal statement is readable. It doesn't have to be a Agatha Christie novel that you have to read 4 times one paragraph to understand what you're saying. So make it readable to the extent that it's a high school to a first or second year college level English. If you have written research articles, you probably know how to make your point across. Basically, don't go overboard and write a Pulitzer Prize winning a personal statement, because that's not what you're doing this for. Don't make it overly basic as well. I don't think any of us would probably fall in that category, but just do make it readable so that a person who reads it once, probably that's what's going to happen. People are going to read it once and then that's pretty much it. So they know what you're trying to get across. Don't make it overly lengthy. It gets very tiring after reviewing so many applications, especially in specialties like internal medicine when you get 5,000 applications. If your personal statement is overly lengthy, the last paragraph, which is probably the most important in everybody's personal statement, will not be read. So people are going to get tired and they're going to skip over. So I would say 1 page, have a word limit of whatever, like 500-600 words, 4 or 5 paragraphs max. And it's hard to do it. That's why, you need help to kind of get your points across. Last thing is, you don't have to repeat your CV, but if there is something to clarify, as Dr. Patel said, if you have a gap in your CV, please do explain it. If you have, as I mentioned, if you have some achievement that you want to highlight, please do. It doesn't have to be a medical achievement. You may have achieved a prize in dance or singing or, any of your other passions. Please go ahead and mention it over there. Overall, personal statement is like one of the funnest aspect, of your application for a person who's reviewing your application, because everything else, when you're reviewing so many, thousands of applications, they all kind of tend to look the same. But personal statement is one unique aspect of your application, which, in my opinion, when I was reviewing applications back in the day, it used to be very fun reading personal statements, because that's like one unique thing about every single application. So yeah, that's all I have about it.
Very well said. Thank you very much. I do want to add a few things though. Please don't talk about religion, avoid politics. I'm sure all the panelists agree with that, and very important. And The personal statement, please don't write what made you come into medicine. You may make it as a story and write, but you're already a doctor, right? Please tell about why you're interested in pursuing more your further career and something. It doesn't have to be medicine related also. It can be anything in the community you're interested in. You did some work in the community. And I think Amu was stating initially about the ID colleague she had and how after the pandemic became very passionate about infectious disease. So something, and your story, you have to own your story. It is your story. That's the most important focus. Please don't copy and paste somebody else's story. It doesn't work. And as Pratna was saying, when we are reviewing the personal statements for the applicants, we can really easily tell whether it's true or not, or whether it's yours or not. Just after speaking to you for a few minutes, we can easily tell. Or just reading the personal statement, you can tell. So please be mindful about that. Thank you. Thank you very much. And moving on to letters of recommendation. Vibhor, you want to start? Letters of recommendation, whom to get it from, or is it from, it has to be university-based letterhead, or is it anybody can, any doctor whom you rotated with can give, or any thoughts on the letters of recommendation, please?
Yeah, so when I was applying for residency and fellowship both, I got letters from people who I knew very well, had a personal connect with, and basically it can be someone who you've worked with on research projects, or it can be someone who you've rotated under. Essentially, someone who can testify that first of all, you are a normal human being and you can work well in a high stress environment, which essentially all of medicine is. So those are the people that you want to get letters from. Sometimes, people can get a little bit confused about, like, should I get it from the head of the department, or should I get from someone who's not the head, but is an attending in that department? And there are differing opinions about it, but in my opinion, people who know you well are able to write stronger letters for you, rather than people who don't know you well but are in a higher position. So get it from people who know you well. You're probably going to submit for 3 or 4 letters. Try to submit from like at least 3 letters from the US. When I was applying back a few years back, people used to submit at least one letter from their home medical school. I don't know if that's still the requirement for many programs. I did not submit any letters from my med school, but again, I was applying for radiology. My colleagues in medicine did. So your home letter, obviously, it's also from someone who you rotated under during internship or something like that. All your letters should preferably be, you should waive your right to view the letter. Essentially, in this system, it's like if you are looking at the letter which is being written, you kind of like take away the freedom of the letter writer, and they cannot express themselves freely. It does. If you're asking for a letter from someone, you just have to trust them to write a good letter for you. If that's not the case, then probably you should not be asking for letters from them in the first place. So yeah, you should waive your right to view the letters. Some letter writers, they may be courteous to at least show you the initial draft. They may not show you the final letter, but they may show you the initial draft. And they may not. It's just don't ask to look at the draft and then waive your right. If the letter writer themselves says like, sure, you can, this is what I've written for you, you can go and edit it, but it's not professional to ask for the draft and still waive your right to view the letter. So those are the key things. I think the content of the letters, from what I have read, even when I was interviewing for the interviewing candidate for residency, the content of the letters, they tend to sound the same for majority of candidates. But if the letter writer really knows you well, they will inject some personal anecdote in the letter somewhere, in the letter. So yeah, as a, just to recap, basically my opinions about it, get it from people who know you well, from where you rotated, one letter from your home institution. It's probably what people used to do, and they're probably still doing, at least in medicine. And waive your right to view the letters. If they show you the letter, you can see it, but if they don't, please don't ask for it, because that doesn't look professional.
Thank you. Thank you, Vibhor. Amu?
Sorry. Hi. So yeah, I agree with Dr. Vibhor. What was said, a lot of points he hit it. My thing is, like, when I'm mentoring students, a lot of them have actually, when they rotate, some of them have tele rotations. Some of them hasn't had the opportunity to come in person. And this happened more during the pandemic. Now it's slowly changing. So the first thing will be how to approach them for letters. So a lot of times it's completely brand new. You're establishing a relationship with them when you're actually rotating with them. So it's very important to let them know the expectation. You can ask them, hey, I am applying this year. I do want a letter. And what should I be doing during this rotation so that you'll be comfortable to write a letter for me? So it's very important to have the conversation early on so they can observe you and walk you along in it. My personal experience has been that the letter writers should actually believe in you. It's hard to have that when you do a couple of weeks of rotation, but staying in touch with them after your rotation, giving them an update while you're asking for the letter that, hey, I did all this and this is my career goal. I want to do this after this. If you let them know, they will know them a little more personally, because letter writers, when they actually do it, they write letters for a lot of people. So the way they remember you is the pointers that you give them or how you performed in your rotation. So it's very important to be mindful of that before before you ask for the letter. Then during the letter writing, obviously, follow up with them. A lot of them are very busy. They will be writing as well as doing a full-time clinical job. So gentle reminders, put them in your calendars and follow up them, 1-2 weeks, very, very politely, not be pushy at all, because that's going to come across very badly and it's going to affect you badly, but very gently reminding them. And also, if you had any update during that time, you had a poster accepted, you got a prize, it's important to let them know and show them your passion. And thirdly, when we are approaching, especially US attendings who doesn't, their etiquettes and the way they approach students might be a little different. So it's very important to understand the etiquettes while approaching for a letter. And be very mindful and be very respectful for asking them. The best way to know you have a great letter is during your interview. Sometimes your attendings will, your interviewers sometimes might quote from the letter. They might say, oh, you have great letters of recommendation. But I agree, it's very important to waive them so that they have the complete right to write, give the honest letter for you. But also ask it only from people you think will be a good, they know you very well, they believe in you. Those are very important to have. Those will be my pointers.
Thank you, Amu. Thank you very
Saras,
much, Ratna.
this is Murthy again. Sorry to interrupt. How do you want to handle the questions that are coming in the chat?
So the panelists, if it's anything they can answer, I think please feel free to do that. And we can also address the questions during the end of the session. If it's
so I think
they can answer, the panelists can answer.
Yeah, panelists can answer, or please type it in the chat. That will resolve the problem so that we don't have to have a lot of questions at the end, please. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Sorry, Pratna, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I echo a lot of what both the previous panelists said. So, I think it's, I'm sure things have changed now with like tele-rotations, and I might not be very abreast with how rotations happen now because I did mine quite some time ago. However, I do think that, one really important thing is knowing how to ask for these letters, because I feel like we're very hesitant to do so, and we often wonder, okay, how do I approach them, and like, are they going to give me a letter or not? But like it was mentioned, I think it's important to at least, if not the very first week, at least by the second week, say that you want that letter so that, you have some more time to kind of demonstrate, what you can do, and they're observing you based on that. When you ask for a letter, I think some things that are important to keep in mind, don't do it casually. Set up an appointment to meet with them. Tell them that you'd like to talk to them and meet with them. take a CV along. So it's really important for you to have a curated CV by then, which is crisp and nice, so you can give it to them, because most letter writers want your CV and they write letters based on your CV. Ask them if they're willing to give you a strong letter of recommendation. Don't just ask for, can you write me a letter? Kind of specify, are you able to give me a strong letter of recommendation? And although this is a little bit challenging to do, I think try to give them an out and let them know that if you feel you don't know me well enough, that's fine, because you'd rather get a really good letter than a generic, mediocre, poor letter. So I think giving them an out would be helpful. And yeah, follow up in a few weeks if you haven't heard back. If you do not hear back more than 2 times, I wouldn't keep bugging them and wait for them to respond before you probably have to find an alternative option. In terms of who to get letters from, I kind of have a preference for what is the best way to go about it. The ideal letter is a well-known person who can give you a great letter, but that always happen. If that doesn't happen, find somebody who knows you really well and can give you a great letter, even if they're not well known. I think the important thing is that somebody who knows you well, who can give you a great letter. If neither of those are things that will work, then a well-known person who can give you a generic letter is the next fallback option. And probably the last one I would pick is somebody who's not well-known and who gives you a generic letter. But I agree that try to get most of your letters from the US, from practicing US physicians. But it's not a bad idea to get maybe one letter from your home country. Again, I'm not certain if those requirements have changed, like it was mentioned before, but somebody who can give you a really, really good letter from your home institution. And I think you have a lot more comfort level with folks from your home institution, and you can give them a copy or a sample of what a really great letter looks like and say, hey, this is the kind of letter I'm looking for. Are you able to give me a great letter of recommendation? And I agree that, waive your right to see the letters as much as possible. There are a few physicians that you work with who say, hey, you know what, you draft your own letter and I'll give you a letter based on that. I think that becomes tricky because, you don't know what to write and you're shy about overly glorifying yourself. In such a situation, reach out to seniors, mentors who can help you kind of draft a letter if you're not certain what to expect. And letter writers, finally, they are the ones who finalize it and stuff. And when they tell you that, okay, you write your own letter and give it to me, ask them, once you've done this, can you give me a waived letter? So, it's a little bit more, they have the opportunity to change it and do what they need to do if they have to do that. So I think those are my tips about letters of recommendation.
Thank you, Pratna. Meet.
That was great description from all 3 panelists. So I have very little to add. As Vibhor mentioned earlier, that a short personal statement is a good idea, but a long LOR is a great idea as well. There are very few people who are aware of this, but an LOR which is greater than 1 page easily catches your attention. And when it's a longer LOR, there are only 2 ways it's possible. One, if it is written by the person candidate and the doctor didn't have time, he just signed it and give it. This does happen. Or it is someone who knows you very, very personally and can write an excellent personalized letter of recommendation. I know someone who wrote 2-page LOR for me, which was very personalized. And in all my interviews of fellowship, that letter of recommendation was specifically mentioned everywhere. So yeah, short personal statement is a great idea. Long LOR would work in your favor as well. Another thing is if there are people who, so for any reason, didn't get a chance to do a rotation in US or did a telemetry rotation, couple of things. I did all my rotations in outpatient settings. There were none that were inpatient. All were based on clinic, and I did fairly well in my application. So don't let that belief hold you back that I don't have inpatient LOR, I don't have LOR from some big name or something. Just go with it. Second thing is, I know a friend of mine who did not get an opportunity to do any rotation in US. His scores were in 240s and 260s. Eventually, he ended up getting 15 interviews, and he matched at a great place. So LORs or no LORs, or not from a big place or inpatient, don't let that hold you back, because I know that's something that might eventually put you on a negative mindset, but don't let that happen. So that's something I would like to add.
Thank you, Meet. My program director wrote an LOR for me for my fellowship application. I can't remember if it was 1 page or 2 page, but she cited in the LOR later on, after everything was over. I waived the right to see it. So after everything was over, I got into fellowship. Then one day when we were talking, she showed me the LOR later on. It was like after 1 year or 2 years. And in that, she had actually somebody like another attending of mine quoted something about me. She put it in that LOR with apostrophes, right? She said, okay, this is what another doctor told about Saras. So it was very personal in a way. I mean, I was so touched the way she actually put her thoughts into the LOR about me. And then she also mentioned about what my other colleagues, when they give the peer, when they give you an evaluation, right? They give you an evaluation to the program director. So they had written few comments in that, or compliments, I should say. So she included that in the LOR as well. I felt that, just like what Meet was saying, that took me a long way. That particular letter took me a long way. I truly believe that. That's one thing. And the LORs, university letterheads, community program letterheads, whatever it is, but I think it has to be somebody, as Pratna and Amu and Vibhav were saying, it has to come, the person, who is writing your LOR, please make sure first you have to feel that they're going to give you a best LOR. It doesn't matter you're getting from Stanford an LOR. It could be like a cookie cutter template, right? And they say, yes, this person rotated with me from this date to this date. I don't think that's going to take you in a long way. Rather than somebody taking some interest in writing about you and what your experience, how you grew in that rotation also. I think that carries a long way. We have Dr. Krishna Kumar here as well. He's an emergency room special physician and a lot of experience in interviewing and helping mentors and mentoring IMGs and everybody else to get into the program. So Dr. Krishna Kumar, do you have any word? I know I caught you off guard, but I saw you on his screen. So any comments on letter of recommendations, please?
Well, I'm not too sure about the letter recommendation. The way I chose my own resident, I can tell you, I basically looked at the scores first. Reason being, people who score high, chances are they're going to pass their board. And programs are judged by ACGM on your board pass rate. If the candidate has got 205, 210, those days, I'm not sure what is the equivalent criteria right now is on USMLE Part 1, Part 2. Chances are they're not going to pass their boards. No matter how good you got a letter recommendation, no matter what you did in lifetime, these guys are not going to pass the board in a decent way like other peers. Number one, that was my scores on the board, scores in USMLE. Number two, I chose the criteria, people who had postgraduate from India. For example, somebody who's dental medicine, MD there from India, if he applies to us as internal medicine program, with a good decent score, he stands really high in my list. So we took them. All right. Nowadays, with the word of AI, anybody can write a good letter recommendation. More important letter recommendation is getting a phone call from your mentor to your office. That carries a lot of weight. Third thing, at the time of interview, what I'm looking into the candidate is he really a team player or not? Is he really hardworking guy or not? Okay. People just who believe in complaining and criticizing, they don't go too ahead in their life. We don't want that. Everybody's imperfect. Nobody's perfect. Only two people are perfect on this earth. One is God, another fool, and we are none of them. As long as person is ready to learn, as long as there to help out the patient, those two were my most important criteria picking the residents from the pile. Okay. And I'm open for any questions you guys might have for me.
Thank you, Dr. Krishna. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And any questions
Yeah, so let me, there's a interesting, but I don't know why she has this kind of a question, but no question is wrong. If she has to state why she is getting into internal medicine and she thinks that most of it is a glitch answer, how do you state why you are getting into IM?
Any takers on this, Vibor?
I'm in radiology, so I would let take this question.
Okay. Meet.
Okay, something I would say that might work in your favor, might not. But if you are asking to how to differentiate from others, I think it's to be very honest. When I was writing my personal statement for fellowship, I mean, sorry, residency, I actually mentioned that the reason I was in med school was because that those were the only choices we had when we were in high school. Our parents only showed us two options, either to become an engineer or a doctor. I didn't have any like personal dream or big thing at that time. Now I'm very passionate about what I'm doing. But I was very honest about that. That's how I learned. My elder brother was the one who guided me. He was the one who showed me that, okay, why don't you choose to become an? And that's how I entered it. So whatever your reason are, if you be honest, that might be very different from other people. And they might like that as well, majority of the times, I believe.
Thank you, Meet. Pratna, for that particular question.
Yeah, I think, even in my own personal statement, I acknowledge that I didn't really know what I really wanted to do at the end of medical school. And, my further experiences, working after medical school, or, the kind of rotations I ended up getting in the US, kind of, made me, that was the reason internal medicine grew on me. And I was honest about it. I think I figured out I wanted to do hem-onc, and I was still kind of, undecided about medicine versus pediatrics. And then I figured I did not want to do pediatric hem-onc, and that's
Sorry, Pratna.
how I decided I want to do.
One moment. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So, so I think for me, it was more a convoluted decision, I guess. But yeah, I was honest about it in my personal statement that I wasn't certain, and that this is something that grew on me with my experiences. So it doesn't always have to be a great or an interesting story, as long as you have an explanation for why you think you may want to go into it. Or if you don't, it's okay to be honest about it.
Right. Amu, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's an honest question, actually. Sometimes we don't get to know, what's so special about it. But it's important to ask this question yourself, because during interviews, you're going to ask that question sometimes, like why internal medicine, why a program? That's some of the questions that the interviewers are going to ask you. So maybe if you don't have that answer during personal statement, it is at least good to think about it, at least during your cycle season. And I don't think there is a fixed format that the first paragraph should be why internal medicine in your personal statement. If you cannot find that, see what you like in medicine and just focus on that. Focus on what you like or what your experience has been. It's not a cookie cutter that the first paragraph has to talk about why you like internal medicine. So if you don't have a very compelling thing, you don't have to mention. Just see what you like about it, what experience has been, and just quote that. And like the previous panelist said, your truth will come through. I mean, you being more authentic is more important than, trying to just be cliche.
Thank you. Dr. Murthy, any other questions on letters of recommendation? Otherwise, we're going to move on to our next topic. Please.
Yeah, I think there is something that I think is important, like people who have step 1 score, but a 250 on CK in IM. I think these are all scores related. How do you screen applications? So if somebody in the panelist can answer that, if they're currently actually dealing with screening of applications.
Could you just repeat the question one more time, please?
The question is, how do you screen the applications, and what is there a score limit that some get disqualified even before downloading, or how do we actually assess that screening of applications? I think it's an important question because people who have low scores, how do you kind of even get there?
Murthy, let me add on to that.
Yeah.
For 10 spots, I used to get at least 1,500 applicants. If you get 1,500 applications, very, very difficult for the program to judge who's good, who's bad. Now, the hospital usually put a filter there right there. They screen out the people who have low scores. Okay, because once you pick your candidate, when it goes for the matching, it has to be reviewed by CMO, Chief Medical Officer too, so that people cannot do hanky-panky for a couple of the applicants. Okay, so it is basically all over the hospital, they adopt that kind of policy. So you must have a good score. Now, somebody did ask, what should we do with when we have low scores? Very good answer for that is, if you think you're not going to make it, you're not going to cut in the next couple of years, instead of waiting 2-3 years to get a residency, my suggestion is to do a DO program that is accelerated for all these international graduates who have low scores. Once you become American graduate, you can get a residency any type of you want to have it, which pays you more money down the road. So 2-3 years doing a DO school gives you ahead of game. It makes you winner for the long term. That would be my suggestion for that.
And just to add, DO and MD have been equalized as far as
That's correct.
residency admissions, along with postgraduate selection or criteria, and then the boards, everything is being equalized just for the. So what you're saying, Dr. Krishan Kumar, is that IMGs, even though they finished medical school in India, they can join DO medical school here. But how is the visa requirement going to change?
So, Dr. Murthy, if I can interrupt, I think that's a whole other topic.
Okay,
Can
sorry.
we just stay focused with our current topics, please, if you don't mind?
Thank you.
Because
Thank
we're
you.
going to have one session on the visas as well. Totally
Oh,
one
okay.
session dedicated just for the visas with our attorneys and everybody.
Sure.
And just to staying focused, that's all.
Absolutely. Point well
So-
taken.
No, thank you. Thank you. And our next topic is going to be on best residency programs for you. Like, how do you pick, right? Most of the applicants, they might think, okay, should I apply? I have low scores, or I don't have a very good clinical observership or rotations or research opportunities. They want to know, where would I be a higher candidate from the residency perspective, program director's perspective as well? So these questions were coming up a lot. And Pratna, could you start saying, like, what would be a high yield residency program for them? There are no guarantees, but just on a majority, at least from your experience.
Sure. So I think it is important to spend time, kind of reviewing program websites to see what their requirements are. Make an Excel sheet, make something by yourself. A lot of the times I see, sheets being passed around and people asking for, do you have information on these programs, which is actually great, but keep in mind that you want to apply to a place which works for you. So you do the research for it to figure out if it's a good fit for you or not. If there are programs that say that, they have a certain score cutoff or they have a certain year of graduation cutoff, don't really apply to those programs unless you know somebody there who might be able to, recommend your application, because it's a waste of money. I personally applied to maybe a handful of dream programs that I really, really wanted to, despite knowing that I'm never going to get an interview from there. And if you really have those, that's fine, but be strategic. If you've gotten scores in that you don't think are competitive enough, don't apply to Harvard programs because they're not going to look at your application. So be strategic that way. And my suggestion is certainly network a lot with seniors and with people from your colleges, etc. And my suggestion is start the networking a bit early. Don't do it very late and expect to get help. A lot of people are willing to help and willing to pay it forward, but you want to start a little bit ahead of time And my philosophy is that, you have nothing to really lose by trying to network. The worst could be that they're not going to be able to help you, which might be the case if you don't try anyway. So try to network. And I think that may be the best way for us to actually get interviews sometimes, because I know a lot of people who've gotten like 250s and still struggle to get interviews because, so many people get 250s now and applications look similar. So I think if you know people in certain programs, certainly you want to apply to those programs and talk to them ahead of time. Yeah, again, I think there's more of a push towards a more holistic review of applications over the years. So I think there are a lot of programs that are trying to do away with step scores and things like that, but there is still a lot of programs who use those. So that is why I think it's really important to, screen through these programs yourself. I think, all of us want to only apply to university programs, which I think is, reasonable depending upon what your choices are. But ultimately keep in mind that you make the most of whatever residency you go to and make the most of what opportunities you get. And you still have the ability to go much more ahead in life. And so it doesn't always have to really start off at the biggest place. My husband started at a small community program, and through his, training, he went to such great programs eventually. So it can happen. So I think be open to the possibility of being at community programs. You do get trained really well. Yes, I think there might be resource limitations, but I think having a good number of, or a good mix of everything is probably a good idea while you're looking for programs.
Thank you, Pratna. Thank you very much for saying that. Community programs are also becoming very robust now. And with the world becoming a small place, even if you fellowship you want to do in an Ivy League program, I think you can start building your resume according to that and do some research and networking, as Pratna was saying. All these are very helpful tools. And Meet, please.
Yeah, so I used a simple strategy. I was looking at the programs where is there any acceptance for IMGs or not? And if there is an acceptance for IMGs, what are the percentage? What were the years where they took IMGs? What were the years they did not take IMGs? Was the flow consistent enough? Just simple parameters. And I think majority of my friends who were applying, we applied empirically to all those programs where there was a particular percentage of IMGs they used to take. But that was something that I chose. Nothing specific other than that.
Thank you, Meet. Amu?
So my strategy, or what I've seen so far, is the programs can be categorized into 3 tiers. So you have the really high Ivy League scores where they carry a lot of weight for scores and research. There is middle tier programs which have good reputations and they're not that stringent on their criteria. And there are lower tier programs in the sense of more community-centered programs, and they would mainly focus on your scores. But there will be, like my previous panelists were mentioning, all of them have their own strict criteria. Frida is a good place where you can check for what the criteria are for each program. I like to create my own Excel of the programs I like to apply to and create notes of where you stand. So based on the criteria, you have to look at where you stand. I've seen IMGs getting into Harvard, Yale. I've seen IMGs getting into other programs as well. So nothing is impossible based on where you stand. So you need to have a good understanding of where you stand in the application with your scores and your research. If you're very research heavy, then yes, the university hospitals are a good bet because they really appreciate it. But if you have like moderate scores and really good research going to community, they may not appeal. The community programs may not find that very appealing because they actually are looking for very clinically strong, good score person. So choosing the programs like that is very important. I wouldn't restrict myself. If you feel like I have a stellar CV and I can apply to a really good school, you can. Connections always matter. You have good mentors in any program, you can apply there. Networking matters, conferences, joining organizations like RP, AMA, specialty organization, ACP. I think I met Prarthana in one of the ACP conferences. So networking like that all helps because it is during this time. So you choose a set of programs during the time you apply. And then throughout the cycle, you will be attending conferences, networking. So you meet a new program, somebody in the program, you can always go and apply back. So the networking is an ongoing process, but yes, it definitely helps to apply a network earlier and make connections with them earlier. Definitely, there are programs which provide audition rotations. That is, if you rotate over there, they'll actually give you an interview. So choosing those programs and putting them in your list and making sure that you have some kind of connection or doing it is really helpful. And then last thing I need to, my pointer would be that during the cycle itself, also new programs open up. So there is an organization like HCA Healthcare. They have a lot of funding to open up new residencies. One of the criteria, they might be a little stringent on their scores and YOGs, and they may also not provide visa. So if you're an IMG who doesn't require visa, this might be a good option because there'll be a lot of new spots that open up during the cycle also that I've seen that you can look out in the ACGME websites. So those would be the three aspects that I would say while choosing program, where you stand in the three tiering, networking, and then looking out for new openings.
Thank you, Ammo. Would you be able to add the name of the website into the chat box for the healthcare one?
Sure.
That is one. And two, the audition programs. How do the applicants find out which is a program where they can go and later on get invited for an interview? How do they find that?
So the thing is, I don't know whether we can, so it's actually, there is a list floating around. There are pre-match programs where you have some kind of rotation they usually consider. There are organizations like MedStar where they actually invite you for an audition rotation. And if they do really well, they do offer you an interview. I'm not sure I can list all the programs like that, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, don't have to list, but at least if you can give them a guidance, like where to look or how to look for that, I think that would be very helpful for them.
Yeah, there are some, it's very important to look out for those kind of programs. Like if your application is a little on the weaker end, going for pre-match programs or places where they definitely guarantee an interview if you rotate them, those are important. The thing is, it's not easy to get in rotations in those places because they take it very seriously, but looking out for them will be helpful as well.
Right. And for future also, I think the future applicants also to be helpful.
Yeah.
Vibor, please. You're muted.
Yeah. So my approach towards choosing the right program is similar to what Dr. Patel said. Just be practical. The program which is best for you is the program where you match. That's it. That's the bottom line. It's like choose. You cannot love one of your kids more than the other. So your program is the love of your life. It is your number one program throughout. Even if you did not rank them number one, it will be your number one throughout your life. So that's it. That's the bottom line. There is a reason why this system is designed in such a manner. It's called a match because they match you with where you fit in the best. So it's not about the program wanting the best candidate. Okay, this is the number one candidate for us, and this person will come here. Maybe your program is not the best program for the candidate. So there's a reason why this program it is set up in such a way, and that's why it's called the match, because the best program for you is where you match. So that's the bottom line. Now, what you make out of that program and how you make your rank order list and so that's a whole different thing. So how you approach this? There are lists, as Dr. Patel said, where IMGs are acknowledged and they are interviewed. Those are the high yield programs. You can choose to apply to more programs than you can apply to university programs where they may take 1 or 2 IMGs. That's your choice, but focus should be on programs where they take IMGs, because your aim is to get in the system, and then you can make your way through doing fellowships at bigger institutions. As Dr. Badwa said, her husband went to a big institution to fellowship. I mean, that's what majority of people do. Yes, there are some people who match into Harvard. Yes, there are some people who match into UT Southwestern. You'll meet your engineering students or colleagues who are like, why are you not going to Harvard to do your residency? It doesn't work that way. Our system is completely different. So again, just repeating, your aim is to just to get in the system, get into the best program possible. And the number of program for you is where you match, and you have to make the most of it, even if you did not rank that program #1. And do not tell anybody in your program where you match, where you rank them. You just tell them we ranked you #1.
Ranked you high or #1. Okay. So I think one more question the applicants had was, so if they rank the program, right, a specific program, and should they follow up with a letter of intent or letter of interest saying, and what would be the cutoff? How much should they back off, or how can they just say, okay, we ranked you and we are really interested in your program? Vibhor?
Sorry, can you repeat that? If they tell you that they ranked you?
Yes. Or if the applicant ranked the program very high, can they, how many times can they email them, or can they call the program?
I don't think that's, I mean, a lot of people do it. So I've received physical cards. I've received my program director had a full stack of cards. Some of the applicants actually have their photo on the card, and it doesn't work. It will not change your rank list. So the way it goes in most programs is the day of the interview, there's a meeting after the interview day. They score all the applicants, and that's it. Like, your post-interview communication, in my experience, and a lot of people that I speak to, does not help. It can actually harm you. I'll tell you one example. Like, one student actually sent cards to 6 of our program, like 4 interviewees and 2 of us. And he had his head cut off from his picture. So what we ended up discussing about that candidate was, this guy sent us a card with his hair cut off from the picture. How is he going to identify findings on a radiology scan? Like, this became a thing. So he was a good candidate. He had good scores. He had good. So just don't do anything that can, if something cannot help you, don't do it. It can actually have a negative impact. You can, come across as being obnoxious. In my experience, in my program's experience, both in residency and fellowship, post-interview communication does not help. If you do want to say thank you in a nice way, you can. Don't feel obliged that you need to email every single person who you ever interacted with at every single program. It doesn't work. I mean, I'll tell you for a fact, I forgot to send thank you notes to the program that I matched in, and I matched in that program. So and also I forgot, not forgot, but I deliberately did not email people who I interviewed in fellowship, because I knew it doesn't work. What I would say you should do is, after you match, I think the most professional thing to do is email all the programs that you did interview at, and just tell them, hey, I matched at this program, and I interviewed at your program, and this is where I matched. I hope our paths cross again. That will go way far away in like setting up your professional network than you emailing every single person at every single program that you interviewed at. Bottom line is, post-interview communication in my book does not work.
Right. Actually, it can do you harm also. One, they may or may not even look at the emails, because they're going to get so many emails. And 2, at times they feel it's too overbearing. It might not help you or harm you.
I would add to that, actually, if you really think that, a program is that fit for you, have one of your mentors reach out rather than you, because your email will be ignored and actually may come across like obnoxious. If one of your mentors can reach out to the program, that may help a little bit. Even that, I'm not sure how much of that would sway the program's decision. But if that is certainly what you want to do, you can have your mentors reach out.
And if one of the mentors know some program director or associated program director in the program you're interested in. That'll help.
Yeah.
Yes, Pratna.
I think another major thing I would recommend people avoid is sending emails to multiple programs saying you're my top choice. Please don't do that. I think if you really want to send email, just send it to only your top choice if you really want to. But I agree that, if there's a program that's saying we don't really care much for post-interview communication, don't bother, but please don't send an email to multiple programs saying you're my top choice, because I don't know if all of you are aware, but where you match can be found out by programs. So if you tell a program that you're planning to rank them #1 and they actually ranked you, but you were lying about it and you match elsewhere, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if your professional lives were to cross in the future, it doesn't really look very great. So certainly, I wouldn't recommend sending that email to multiple programs.
And the program directors also have their own network. They have friends as well among themselves. They have their committees and societies and meetings, and they can exchange information too. So just to be aware of that.
I'll add one thing to that thought that Dr. Bajwaj has. Please don't send emails also saying that I have ranked you very highly, because nobody wants to be #2 in this world. If you have genuinely ranked a program #1, you can tell them, okay, I ranked you #1 only to that one program. Do not send an email saying I ranked you very highly. That means you have not ranked them #1. They do not want to be #2, and just would not look good. Nobody wants to be #2.
Right. Meet.
I think what Dr. Vibhor said, I echo that. Usually when it's time just before the ranking, sending cards or email might not work majority of the times, but I'm still in favor of sending one, because you never know what connects at what time. So definitely give an effort and see how it works out.
Saras, I think I agree with this, because even though it was 23 years ago, I just interviewed in one program through a contact. So when I sent the personal invitation to all the 13 people who interviewed me, I sent a card, and I actually involved the discussion that happened during the interview. And when I came, I had a very warm reception coming from Jamaica to US. They all thought that there were some people who were skeptical about me being taken, because I was way out of the normal application process, because graduated 8 years ago. So they said, there is a human part. They were skeptical. My program director was very honest, but at the end he said, you're a very strong candidate. And when I did this, the people who were skeptical, they actually became friends while I was in the residency with me. And very early, they started supporting me with the transition and all that. So you can add a personal touch if you're very genuinely touched by the interview process, but don't fake it.
Right. So Meet, coming back to your question. Thank you, Dr. Murthy. Coming back to your question, right? These days, applicants are applying for 200 programs. So many, like multiple programs. So how can they go about that? Maybe they'll get interviews around, depending, 10, 15, whatever number of interviews, right? So how can they go about manuring this whole process? And they want interviews from certain places. Can they approach them saying, okay, I'm really interested in your program. These are my qualities and things like that. Of course, the whole application is going to go and reach the program director, but can they approach them to get an interview?
Sure. So yeah, as I said, I am definitely in favor of that, approaching them. There are people who might not like sending them personal email. I know when the personal email is sent, the next thing they see is getting a rejection right from that program, that we have declined their application. But again, some program directors, they like that approach, that someone is consistent, someone is trying to go an extra mile. So it majority of the times from what I've seen, it works in your favor. I know my colleagues who have gotten interviews after sending personalized emails to the program. So out of 100, maybe 1 or 2 program might like it. Others will just surely ignore it. But yeah, I'm all in favor of sending emails.
So would you recommend sending emails to all the 100, 150 programs the applicant applies, or do you have any strategy to say, okay, maybe pick your top 15 or 20 and then focus on that? What
Okay.
would be your strategy?
All right. So the honest answer is depending on how much time and energy you have, the probably top 5 or top 10 choices, make a very personalized email and send it to them. Why you want that program? What are your qualities that are specific to that program? If you know someone there and you have heard that they are looking for a particular candidate, mention that this is what I know and this is what I will bring to the table. The rest of them, there is no harm in sending a generic email. You never know what works. So I would still take a chance.
Thank you, Meet. Same question to you, Amu.
So with regard to communication post into like reaching out to programs, yes, I think that it's helpful, but it's also exhausting and time consuming from your end. If you applied for 200 programs and applying, like reaching out to them can be very exhausting. So I agree with Dr. Patel saying that, choosing the programs that you really want to go, showing them very personal, because they can read a generic letter. They'll get, like, you will be sending 200, they'll be getting 200 daily as well. So the more personal you can be and showing a real interest to that program. For example, if it's a program in your locality, you live very close to them, just sending them that note and saying you're really interested can actually help. I don't think it'll hurt. But it may not like always land you up in an interview. I personally have received interview by reaching out to program as well. So I would, be in favor of that. Other than that, post-interview communication, as was mentioning, there are some programs that strictly says no. So when they say no and if you send them, it's actually annoying them and you're not listening. But if not, it won't really harm you unless you make a lot of blunders. So I usually do a thank you follow-up, as well as if I really want to get to hear back from a program, I do reach out to them, and it has worked in my favor in the past.
Thank you, Amu. Sorry about that. Pratna? I think you're muted.
Yeah. So, it's a very difficult, it's a tricky situation to navigate. It works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes. Personally, for me, it worked. The place that I matched to was probably one of 2 or 3 programs that I reached out to saying, I'm really interested in interviewing at your program. I think if you have a genuine reason to do so, I don't think you should shy away from reaching out. Yeah, I think, I wouldn't, my personal take is I wouldn't recommend sending an email to, all the 100 programs. I would say pick your top 5 to 7 programs where you are really interested, or you have a genuine reason. You may have family close by, things like that. You should certainly give it a shot. It may or may not work. It may backfire, but you should be willing to take that risk. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Pratna. Vibor, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, whatever I said before, it's a very personal decision. I think what Dr. Bhardwaj kind of very rightly said is it's a risk benefit, thing. It may work in 1 in 100 or 2 in 100 chances, but if you're willing to take that risk, it's a personal decision. Obviously, in the entire, that's the one beauty of the entire USMLE matching process is some things work for some people and some things don't. And that's why it's important to have, multiple opinions about it. Post-interview communication, actually, it didn't work for me in the first place. And then, I mean, it did establish a network because radiology is a small community. So I would meet the people who I've interviewed with at conferences because it is a smaller community. But it became more apparent when I was on the other side of the fence and receiving those communications, and that can get a little overwhelming. Because everybody, if you start receiving so many letters and physical letters, not just emails, it can get a little bit overwhelming to read them, respond to them, things like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Just add one more question regarding the states, right? Few states are IMG friendly. and other states are not IMG friendly. Any comments on that, Pratna, which states to look at or focus more on? IMG friendly states?
I am going to try my best to answer this because I applied to
Just a
residency
hand
like
raise.
almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, I think a lot of the programs in the Northeast tend to be a lot more IMG friendly. So, mid-Atlantic and Northeast areas. So Maryland, DC, Virginia area, New Jersey, New York area. Massachusetts is not bad. I think Florida actually has a lot of programs. I know the HCA programs, like it was mentioned earlier, they don't necessarily all do visas, but that's a lot of programs. I think Michigan has a lot of programs too. So I think, it's pretty variable, but yeah, I feel like a lot of them are concentrated in the mid-Atlantic Northeast area for IMGs, I feel.
Sure. What do you think about Massachusetts? Both of us are from Mass.
Yeah, so I think it's variable. There are some programs that are really IMG friendly and literally all their residents are IMGs, like there's St. Vincent. I think Stuart Carney is not bad in terms of IMG. There's Mount Auburn, which is an affiliate of Harvard that has a few IMGs. The program that I am at, Bay State, is like is almost an equal mix of IMGs and AMGs. So yeah, I think there are certainly programs in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has 16 or 17 internal medicine residency programs, and a decent number of them are really IMG friendly. Even places like Boston Medical Center and Tufts do take IMGs, not a whole lot, but they certainly have taken people from India before.
Right, and Carney Hospital as well.
Yeah.
They are IMGs. I see so many South Americans getting into programs there and IMGs. So Vibor?
Yeah, so
locations, IMG friendly programs.
I think in this today in 2023, there are IMGs in almost every state. I used to think I'll match in the Northeast as well, but I ended up going to the South and surprised to find a lot of IMGs in Arkansas. There are IMGs in every single state of the South. So I don't. It actually depends on how many programs that the state have. New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, they tend to have more programs. There's a higher number of hospitals. There's more population there. So there are more hospitals. They need more residents. So they have more IMGs matching there. But it's not a geographical limitation per se. It's a limitation of how many programs does the state have. There are some states, especially California, who are not, particularly visa friendly. So more IMGs who go there are who don't need a visa or who are like US IMGs who did their, med school from the Caribbean. But barring that one state, and also like either Hawaii or Alaska, who really don't have much of a, footprint, every other state does have, IMGs going there. But it's a matter of like how many programs does the state have. When I started my residency, Arkansas only had 2 or 3 residency programs, and now they have more than 10. Obviously when hospitals open in remoter places, they have a struggle to recruit residents, and then they also tend to be more favorable towards IMGs. So unless you have yourself have a geographical limitations, I don't think you'll be limited to any geography in this country.
So if any of the seniors, they're seniors, right? Like you're from Maulana Azad, if the previous applicant seniors have gone to a specific program, you think the chances, because the program already knows about the students, their training and everything from their previous residents from Maulana Azad, do you think the chances of them applying to that specific program and getting an interview is higher?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's a very, very important, aspect that a lot of programs, a sizable number of programs look at is like if people from your particular med schools have done well previously, they will tend to look at you favorably as well, provided that at baseline your application is strong. Like if you have good scores, you have good letters. The tiebreaker comes like if people from your med school have done well. We do in my med school community, we do have sizable number of programs which do tend to take have kind of this chain of people coming and doing well, and then more people coming into those programs. So yes, that definitely helps. So that's why, like, reaching out to your seniors from your med school, or even like neighboring, if you have a med school in the same city back home, that's very, very crucial. And especially if that particular senior that you're reaching out to is is good, then you are even better positioned to kind of match that program, or have a good kind of chance to at least interview at that program. So yeah, that 100% helps. So that's in all of my juniors, in my experience, in my seniors experience as well.
Thank you, Vibhor. Same two questions, Amu. Geographical locations.
Yeah, so with regard to, as an IMG, I wouldn't restrict myself with any geography, in the sense that any state which has high number of IMG friendly program is an IMG friendly state. So statistically, New York, Northeast, Midwest, also Chicago has a lot of IMG friendly programs as well, tend to have higher number of programs that take IMG. So definitely, like my previous panelist was saying, the higher number of programs you have, that state becomes more IMG friendly. California, yes, I haven't seen many people going there. Also, another perspective I want to bring is that when you say IMG, we are anybody who's like not a US medical citizen, but a US medical graduate. But that includes Caribbean graduate, that includes Latin American graduates, as well as, we have Southeast Asian as well. So there are programs which favor certain types of IMGs. So there are programs that favor Caribbean graduates. A lot of programs in Florida favors Caribbean graduates because they rotate there. So there's a Cleveland Clinic, Florida, where a lot of Ross University Caribbean grads rotate there. So they have an undue advantage over them being IMG friendly. So even if they say IMG friendly, you have to go into the website to see previous people who match, to say, are they Indians? Are they from other countries? So there are some areas which are very Spanish heavy. So it is advantage for the program to take IMGs who speak Spanish. So especially if you call programs in Puerto Rico, they actually even talk only in Spanish. They don't even speak in English as when you call them on the phone. So those programs it's better not to focus on them. So when you look at programs, if you're taking a lot of Southeast Asian IMGs, focus on that. That would be my advice if you're focusing on IMG friendly programs. So just because it's IMG friendly, it's also important to see the previous graduates where they are. And yes, if your people from your program has matched into a program, the program already knows your medical school, that's a big advantage that can definitely work in your favor. Yeah, those would be my tips.
Thank you, Amu. It's good to know about the Caribbean schools interconnection with the Florida programs. I think that's important to know. And Meet?
Yeah, I think Dr. Amu gave a great answer. I'll just add something to it. At the current program that I am in, because it is in proximity to Canada, a lot of residents here are actually Canadian citizens. And also a lot of the residents here are coming from Caribbean med schools. So that's a connection they probably look for. And different places have their own style and their own format. So you can just look into their previous residents and can get an idea of it. One thing I would like to add, Dr. Saras, from previous question, if you don't mind,
Sure.
About emailing the programs. I know it's a big no-no from a program director's perspective, because they'll be tired of their inbox being filled with all these emails. But I know I would like to share two real life experiences of my friends. One who was unmatched in her first cycle. She had scored in double 250s, but her interview skills were average, and she ended up getting 4 or 5 interviews, and she didn't match. Next season, when she applied with me, she was telling me from day one, "Meet, please email the programs, don't forget it." And I was kind of shy. I was not ready to shoot those emails to different programs. She got interviews in double digits, more than 10, and she told me that she owes that to emailing the programs, and got a lot of interviews based on that. Another friend her scores are in 210s, and she only got 1 interview in the entire season. She was also trying to network. She sent an email in the morning, and the same morning someone canceled an interview. The PD saw her email and gave the interview, and she matched in the same program with score in 210s. So I think taking a chance would still be in favor of then worrying about pissing someone off in the program. So yeah.
I think that's good to know. It's different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely different perspectives.
Yeah,
actually.
certainly a different perspective. Yeah.
So we have Dr. Aragola here, Srinivas Aragola. Dr. Aragola, would you like to add anything regarding the programs, the geographical locations, or about the whole discussion? He's actually, I'm sure most of you know him. He's very, very active in the medical career group and also in the 2024 Match WhatsApp group. And he's a part of the education steering committee and trying to bridge mentors and mentees. So, Dr. Aragola?
Yes, I think most of the East Coast programs, New York, New Jersey, are more IMG friendly. And that's where I would focus on for residency. And from there on, if you do well there, you can get fellowship wherever you want.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aragola. Pratna, I know you have to go. Thank you for your time, but do you have any closing statements, please?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to hop off this discussion soon. But yeah, like I said, I think, it's really challenging to go through the process. I think the waiting game, I think the easy part of MLE is actually taking the exams and getting done with them. It's the process after which makes it really challenging to be able to match. But I feel like this is so much about patience, resilience, and endurance. I think if there's one thing that I wish I had done a bit differently during this process was networking better. I don't think I reached out to enough people when I was applying to residency. I think connect with people, and when you connect with people, be consistent in your connection. Don't talk to them once and drop off the conversation and expect them to help you. So, make sure that you keep a consistent conversation going, hopefully not in a very annoying way, but, just making sure that you can network as best as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pratna. We really appreciate your time and energy and helping mentoring the IMGs. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry I have to hop off the conversation.
No, totally fine. Thank you. Thank you so
Whereas
much.
I think it's 90 minutes since we have done this.
Vibhor, do you have any closing statements?
Yeah, same. I mean, I agree with all the sentiments that have been shared so far. This process is a test of your patience for sure. This is kind of the first time that a lot of us are interacting with, like, applying for essentially for a job in the American system. So it is different than from where we come from. Like in India, you give an exam, you get a rank, and you're set. You get a seat, and you go and take an admission. It is a lot different here. I agree. The easiest part is actually taking the exam. The harder part is like to stay patient throughout the process, and you might do everything well, but as people, as a lot of people say, like, there are so many things that are not in your hands. Like it becomes very subjective at one point of time. So you just have to be patient. You have to trust the process. Like, you have to make sure you do everything right on your part, but it may not work out exactly how you envisioned it, but it will work out in a way that is best for you. As I said before, there is a reason why this process is designed in this way, because wherever you match will be the best fit for you. You may not think it is the best fit for you, but in time you will realize that wherever you match is a good match for you.
Really?
You will be successful in wherever you match. So I wish everybody good luck, and thank you for having me, Dr. Saras.
Thank you. Thank you, Vibhor. We have Dr. Tanmay Patwa here. I wanted to see, he's a part of the Education Steering Committee. He's also in critical care medicine. Dr. Tanmay? Amu, go ahead, Amu. Any closing statements, please?
Yeah, so my closing remark would be to enjoy the process. So scores are the king, that lay the foundation. That is your your that you are going to have, once that's done, the rest of the process. So right now, your application is in, it's a process of finding your right programs, getting your letters and personal statement. So do all that, try to get like mentorship from your seniors, from people around who can help you in your program. So once that process is done, you're, like you said, it's out of your hands now. The ball is in their court. But that time, enjoy the process, enjoy meeting people, enjoy knowing more about the programs, enjoy showing interest to them, enjoy the interview process. When you actually enjoy it can be very tough. First few months, you don't get interviews, you'll be in a panicky mode. You're seeing how many interviews other people are getting, the comparison exists. But through this process, it's just going to make you stronger. Whatever be the outcome is, people match in 1 attempt, 2 attempts. Most of you will match, right away where you want to go. But in the process, you have to enjoy that, know that whatever comes through it's just going to make you much more stronger and a better physician on the long run. So that would be the thing. And join organizations, because a lot of people and help provided to you reached out. If you reach out, there are a lot of like attendings and like seniors who will be happy to help. If you join organizations, network, showcase continue to work, do any kind of work, whether you like clinical or research, continue immersing into it while you're waiting to hear back from these like programs. So in that way, when you enjoy the process, like things will happen for the better.
Thank you, Amo. Very well said, because it is a long and tiring process. Meet, any closing statements you have?
Sure. So whatever was shared by all of us, our perspectives are what we believe is ideal. If your personal statement of your LORs doesn't match that thing or that standard that is shared, it's okay, it's perfectly fine. Just go with it and see where you land. I think everyone has a place already decided, but it's in future, so you don't know. So just don't stress out. Just give your best, and that's all. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. We have Dr. Tanmay Parpa back here, and he's in critical care medicine, and he's very ardent about helping IMGs. He's a part of our educational steering committee. And Tanmay, would you like to say?
Yeah, sure.
Your opinion?
I am actually infectious disease physician, and I finished my residency and fellowship like 7 years back. What I did during my time, that if you have a good score and if you even see less than 5% of IMG in a program, please do apply that. I got match where we only had a less than 5% IMG, and I was afraid to apply. I was thinking that why should I waste my $25 during that time? I'm not a good candidate, but I end up getting a pre-match from that program where we only had a less than 5%. So if you see any IMG and if your score match, please do apply. Okay, you never know which program they like you. Other thing in terms of whether to contact the programs or not, it works out in fellowship. I wanted to be matched in Chicago. That was my family, where my family was that. My mentor, my program director, all contacted my family. They contacted the fellowship director, and it worked out for me. You never know which works for you. Even during my residency program director, she likes to take the local candidates. So if the local candidate approached to my program director, she loves it, and we have so many local candidates during my residency also. So each program is unique. You do not know what program director likes and what they don't like. Some of the program director they don't like, whether you contact them. Some program director they like, and we as a candidate, we never know. So do your best.
Thank you. I know for applicants, it might be confusing. Find out, okay, which programs should they actually send the email or not, but I think you have to, as we said, focus on maybe 10 programs or so and your high interest programs, and see what is it that the program is all about, and if your interests match their interests as well. And then maybe you can mail them on.
Yeah, other thing is that I know nowadays is a virtual interviews, but they might start in person soon. So whenever I went for the interview, I normally talk to the resident, what program director likes, what this doctor likes. So sometimes they give you some kind of hint about that. And when I was a second year resident, and the applicants came, and she told me, she asked me that what the program director likes. She was a local. So I told her that come for the second look, my program director loves it. She came for the second look and she matched. So that doesn't work for other program, obviously, because many places they don't like the second look. But for my program, that was the case. They loved it. So ask the resident when you go for the interviews and see what program likes and what they don't like. I think that will definitely help you guys out.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Patwa. We have Dr. Himanshu here. I'm wondering if it's Dr. Himanshu Pandya from New York. He's been helping a lot of IMGs as well. Okay. So I hope everybody found this very informative. And please put your feedback in the medical career group WhatsApp and also in the 2024 match group WhatsApp regarding any future topics that you want to discuss about or need more answers. And that's one part. And with the next topic is going to be on ERAS applications, because the ERAS applications have changed this year. The way we are putting in all our information and the top 10 priority activities that you've done and everything else. So many of you had a lot of questions on the ERAS applications. So that's going to be our next discussion. And the recording for this and our previous personal statement, we will actually, in a couple of days, we'll actually put it on the group, WhatsApp group. So we want to thank all the panelists. First of all, we want to thank the Education Steering Committee for putting in all the hard work and just trying to get this group together and keep it going. And we want to thank the panelists, Dr. Wadhwa, Dr. Sushila, Dr. Patel, and Dr. Bharatwaj. So any questions, please put in the WhatsApp group. Dr. Gokula, I think, also added, or Dr. Arugula added the WhatsApp link here. And please feel free to join that group. Please make sure you put in your first and last names. That's the only way you'll be able to get into the group, which is trying to keep scammers off. So kindly just follow the ground rules. Thank you.
And thanks, Saras, for doing such an outstanding job in trying to streamline this activities and taking the lead on this.
Thank you, Dr. Gokula. Thank you, Dr. Arugula, and thank you, Dr. Patwa as well. Thank you, everybody.
And I'm going to end the meeting. I'm going to end the meeting with your permission, Saras.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.